At the McLain estate, Philip is stopping people left and right, starting with Administrator Logan. He tells him that he has just checked the storage, and it seems like they have a lot of wasted space. With this, they can reduce costs and increase the shelf life of their production. And hearing this, Logan thanks Philip. He then turns to Dwayne, telling him that there's something about the upkeep of the town and the payroll that he wants to discuss, as there is an error there. So he prompts Dwayne to take a look, and Dwayne says he will do it. He then turns to Mr. Ferran and tells him that while the armaments are in very good shape, cleaning oil from Kalia is only half the price of Kale's, and Ferran tells him that a merchant really does know the prices. Seeing everything that is happening, Logan asks Dwayne if Philip didn't arrive at the fief only yesterday, and Dwayne tells him that he knows the young master ordered Philip to assist in running the fief, but he certainly works differently than everyone else. He then says that he heard about Philip also being the one that procured all the weapons and the lumber that's been arriving at their fief, and Logan asks, what is the young master planning to do with it? Hearing this, Dwayne breaks a sweat, and that no matter how you look at this, there is but one reasonable explanation. Back on the training grounds, Patrick is furious, since Logan just broke him the news that they are preparing for war. Patrick tells Logan that he cannot believe this is the thing Logan wanted to discuss with him in private. Seeing Patrick's reaction, Logan keeps his mouth shut for a second. Patrick then asks if Bifrost will be invading soon, but Logan says that is not it. He then tells Patrick that they will be the ones to instigate it. Patrick is once again getting mad. He clenches his fist and tells Logan to tell him what is the reasoning behind his actions. Logan starts to say that, just as Patrick knows, the reason Bifrost hasn't invaded them yet is because of Logan's teacher, and then asks Patrick how long he thinks that will last. Patrick tells Logan that they can keep growing their forces until then, as they still lack in many ways compared to Bifrost. Yet Logan intervenes and says that if he were in Bifrost's shoes, he would make sure that day would never come. He then tells Patrick that it needs to be done now. Patrick then inquires further. He asks Logan if he knows something he doesn't, and if so, to please tell him the truth. Logan looks down and thinks for a second. He then asks Patrick if he would believe him if he were to say he knows when the king is going to die, and that it will be soon. And hearing this, Patrick sheets his armored pats, thinking Logan might want to commit high treason. Logan tells his father that it's nothing of this kind, reassuring him that treason is not his plan. He then asks Patrick to assume that what he's told him is true, and how he thinks the situation will play out. Patrick says that it'd cause issues in the battle of succession for the throne. Logan tells him that he is indeed right, and that the fight between the first and second princes would escalate, and that Bifrost is one of the core supporters of the second prince. So he asks Patrick what he thinks will happen if they wage war against him once that happens. That is when Patrick realizes that they would essentially wield their blades against the second prince himself. Logan once again states that his father's reasoning is correct, and says that if they want to fight against Bifrost without outside interference, now is their only chance before the king dies. Logan goes on to think that once Bifrost is out of the picture, the flow of battle will begin swinging towards one side. This is when he will place the third prince in the war. Patrick tells Logan that he understands his point of view, but then asks if they cannot wait until one succeeds the crown, as this way they can bide their time until then. Logan thinks that after the Civil War, the Empire will take over immediately, but it's not like he can say that. So instead he simply tells his father that by then, it will be too late. He goes on to explain that if the second prince is victorious, Bifrost would become one of his most trusted aides. If the first prince wins, the territory that Bifrost has will no longer belong to them. Bifrost will become a region that they will never be able to touch either way, and they will never be able to recover their rightful land. Patrick says that he understands what Logan means, and that there are still a lot of questions that he has, like how Logan knows the king will be passing away soon, and hearing this, Logan wants to say something in order to explain himself, but Patrick cuts him off. He then tells Logan that whatever will happen, he trusts him. All the things Logan has done until now had many peculiar points in them as well. They then look towards the castle, and Patrick says that it's almost like Logan knows the future. Patrick says that he understands this much, that he might be in a situation where he cannot tell other people what he knows. Therefore, he will only ask one more question, and after that he shan't inquire any further. He then asks Logan, with all of the things he's done, and all the ones that he intends to do in the future, what is he doing everything for? Logan then thinks for a second, and then replies to his father. Everything he's been doing has always been to make their family prosper, and that is all. Hearing this, Patrick looks down and stays silent for some time. He then tells Logan that he trusts him, and that he should leave convincing the aides to him. Logan asks Patrick if he is sure he will be fine with this task on his own, and Patrick asks Logan if he doesn't trust his old man, but Logan says this isn't it. Patrick tells Logan to worry not, and entrust this task to him, as he can do at least this much as his father. A few days later, Patrick has summoned the people of the family, and told them that on the day of the new year, they will wage war. Hearing this, Everyone jumped as if they were electrocuted, a natural reaction, considering how their fief just became habitable. However, Patrick did not give up. He reminded them of the same as losing their land, the assassination attempt from Bifrost, and lastly, the danger that will inevitably come. As their blood continued to chill and boil, they soon realized the necessity of this war. Logan thinks that since they cannot mention the knight's death, he decided to take an emotional approach. They need to push forward, even if this is what it takes. Only 2 weeks later, 3 days before the end of the year, they left for war. There stood 152 knights, 1,000 crossbow cavalry, including trainees, and 1,532 infantrymen. Patrick yells for everyone to advance, and so they do. As they ride towards their destination, Patrick asks Logan if he has a specific plan. A conversation from the past appears, and Patrick says that Logan must have thought about some basic strategies before suggesting a war, and Logan says that he indeed has. As for now, they have no chance at a full frontal assault against Bifrost, so instead they will not declare war against them. And hearing this, Patrick gets lost, not sure what Logan means by that. Logan raises his finger, suggesting he has a brilliant idea. Somewhere else, a servant, scared shitless, goes to inform his lord of something. He tells his lord that the McLain's have declared war, as they wish to seek revenge for the shame of 6 months ago. This lord is no other than Max Peretta, the one Logan is going to wage war upon. And hearing the latest news, his face turns into the one of a ghost, and it looks like his soul left his body. At the Bifrost estate, Bifrost has been told of the McLain's declaring war against the Perettas, and he doesn't seem happy about it. A servant tells Bifrost that the Perettas have requested aid, and asks Lord Befores what they should do. Hearing this, Bifrost calls the McLain's fools, saying he was barely able to hold back because of his sword duke, but it seems they've gone and made a pretense for them. He thinks that their military strength is roughly double that of theirs, although it all depends on the rumored crossbows. He then turns back and asks Aslan and Franz if the preparations are complete, and they reply that everything is in order. Bifrost rises from his chair and tells them to prepare for war. He states that they will crush the Perettas when they're drunk of their victory, and drop them from heaven to hell. On the battlefield, Patrick is riding his horse as fast as he can. Heinkel shouts at him, saying that at this rate, they will reach Peretta's castle within a day. Patrick says that this is good, and then gives the order for everyone to change directions. At the Peretta estate, Max Peretta is shitting himself, asking why the McLain's are not coming yet. A knight comes to tell Max Peretta something about the McLain army, and Pereira asks what it is. He then informs Peretta that the McLain's have disappeared. As Bifrost is riding towards Peretta, a knight also informs him of the same thing, that the McLain's have disappeared from Peretta and instead appeared at Bifrost, their territory. That is when Bifrost realizes what the McLain's plan is. They are not where they are, at the first castle. Therefore, they must be at the second one, Castle Tomoto. Heinkel and Logan are talking, with Logan saying that this is it, and Heinkel agreeing. They have arrived at Bifrost's second castle and its massive granary, Castle Tomoto. Heinkel tells Logan that this is Bifrost's lifeline, where they store the majority of their provisions, and if they were to occupy it, the Bifrosts would suffer long-term consequences. However, he then asks Logan if they will really be able to win just by occupying this castle. Another conversation from the past appears, with Logan telling his father that they will declare war on Peretta, but his true target is Castle Tomoto. Once again, Patrick doesn't understand Logan's plan. Patrick asks Logan if he is planning to lure out Bifrost using Peretta, and Logan says that this is exactly what he's going to do, saying that they will do their utmost to avoid clashing with Bifrost's forces, and in the meantime, they will occupy Castle Tomoto. Patrick says that even if that happens, eventually they won't even have 2 days before meeting them, but Logan says that this is fine, as they only need to hold out until His Majesty passes away. And hearing this, Patrick is stunned. Logan explains that once that happens, all nobility in the kingdom will be forced to drop what they're doing and attend the national funeral. It would be a direct decree from the royal family, which holds immense authority, enough authority to stop a war. Patrick realizes that Logan is once again right, as if Bifrost transgresses against the royal family, then he would immediately be convicted of treason. Patrick says that even if Logan said that he knew when the king will pass away, he still can't believe he came up with this, and then asks if he is absolutely certain of the date. Logan replies that he is indeed sure, as it's a date he could never forget. The death of the king will be announced at midnight on New Year's Eve. We are back in the present now, and Logan states that there are 2 days left until then, and that they have to occupy Castle Tomoto before then. On the walls of Castle Tomoto, high-ranking Knight Jerome, captain of the Castle Tomoto Guard, is mad, asking where the hell has everyone come from. His brother, Adjudant, high-ranking Knight Jerix, tells Jerome to calm down, as they've already reported the situation towards the main castle, and they only have to hold out for one day. Jerome turns towards his brother, and then towards the horde, saying that there are 3,000 of them. The knights of the McLain alone number roughly 200, asking his brother just how they are supposed to hold out. Jerome says that if only this was the main castle, it would have been pretty easy, but fending them off with just Castle Tomoto's military strength is almost impossible. And his brother Jerick's replies, saying that they just need to guard the rampart and hold out, and that if they all work together, they can persist for a day. He then turns to the 3 ranking knights of the castle, Gale, Teres, and Typhon, saying that they will earn their keep now. And just as Jerick says that, a battle cry disturbed them. This is Patrick telling all his forces to advance, and it appears like this is exactly what they are going to do, with Logan holding a crossbow in the first lines. Seeing this, Jerome tells his archers to take aim. At the same time, Logan tells his crossbowmen to prepare. Just seconds later, he also prompts them to fire. The arrows imbued with force are flying towards the castle's walls. Seeing this, even Jerome gets scared, saying that they are really fast. Unfortunately, they all hit the walls. They don't have enough power to go over the walls, which is something that Jerick acknowledges within seconds. Seeing this, he laughs. He then prompts his own archers to return the fire. A rain of arrows is heading towards the McLains. Luckily, they fall just at the point where they've stopped marching. Kaisalon, standing before Logan, says that it seems like this is the limit of even a longbow's range, and Logan says that the same goes for their crossbows, and that however much force they pour into it, it barely reaches the ramparts. Kaisalon then asks if they should cease fire, since otherwise they are just wasting arrows. But Logan says they should not, as it's worth keeping their enemies in check like this. Besides, if it's about the supply of arrows, Hamar has made more than enough of them. And hearing this, Kaisalon asks Logan to please give Hamar an adequate vacation. Logan then turns his head around to Clayton, who has also been brought to the battlefield, telling him that he has a request. Clayton said that he never thought they would have to join the war. He then turns towards his pupils and tells them they have to get to work. The arrows keep flying towards the rampart, simply hitting the walls. Seeing this, the 2 in charge of the castle are asking themselves just what in the hell are their attackers doing, as they are not getting any close and just firing arrows from there. Jerick wants to ask what they are doing when something literally shakes him. They ask what that sound is, and the other brother says that even though it's so subtle, even the ground is shaking. It seems that at the base of the rampart, a golem is punching the ground. Realizing this, the brothers don't understand what is going on anymore. They realize that Logan also has a magician, but they don't understand what that golem is doing. Another memory appears, this time from the newly constructed McLain town. Logan and Clayton are speaking, and Logan has told Clayton that he wants to use golems in the war, which Clayton finds peculiar. Logan says that they could use the golems to defend themselves from arrows, or easily wipe the enemies. He then tells Logan that if it's mana stones he needs, he's also got that covered. And hearing this, Clayton asks if it's that important of a battle. Clayton then proceeds to tell Logan something he's not going to like. That sort of operation is impossible, and Logan asks why. He states that if the mana stones are the issue, it can be easily solved. But Clayton stops Logan, saying it's not that. Clayton says that this concerns their lives. Logan doesn't understand, so Clayton proceeds to explain. It isn't a well-known fact, but when the golems receive a certain amount of damage, that damage is transferred to the caster. He goes on to say that they've of course been searching for ways to improve this. He then hands Logan a research paper which says that by disrupting the flow of magic sent by the mana stones, something happens. However, Logan isn't listening anymore, thinking that his dream of having a golem army is gone, and Clayton asks him if he is paying attention to him, but then Logan is just sad about it. Therefore, Clayton proposes something else. On the battlefield, the golems are digging a hole and are going underground alongside the mages. Seeing that the McLains have also stopped shooting, the brothers are asking themselves what are they planning, and one of them even thinks that they want to dig a tunnel all the way under the wall. Jerick, however, is not troubled by it. He tells his brother that they've started digging in the morning and it's already getting dark, so at this rate, reinforcements will arrive before the golems get to them. This calms Jerome a little, saying that then they just need to wait there until that happens. However, the calm goes away immediately, as the ground beneath them shakes, and they have no idea of what's going on. Jerome realizes that the structure of the walls might be in danger. He then turns to his brother and asks what would be the chances of the walls collapsing. Jerick says that this would be impossible. Jerome, scared, asks his brother if he doesn't feel the ground shaking under them, but Jerick keeps his composure, saying that they should not make any moves yet. Hearing this, Jerome goes mad and asks what will happen if the walls fall. He then asks why he thinks they haven't been attacking, as the McLain's must be plotting something. Jerome looks down and says that they must do something. He tells his brother that they need to strike their mages with something, and that he will be personally going down and taking care of it. Seeing this, Jerax tells him that Jerome is the captain, so he can't just leave and go anywhere he pleases. Therefore, Jerax will take some knights and go instead. Hearing this, Jerome looks at his brother. He tells him that he agrees with this plan, and Jerax is happy that Jerome has finally calmed down. Jerax then tells his brother that he panics too easily, and Jerome apologizes for it. Outside the castle's grounds, Jerax is leading a unit of knights, and one of them tells his captain that the sun is setting already, and Jerax replies that it can't be helped. He goes on to say that the forest surrounds them to the south and the west, so it's safer to make their way around the southern forest in order to attack. Minutes later, Jerax tells his knights that they've arrived. Looking at the McLain army, Jerax assesses the forces, 5 regular knights that he can see. He then spots something that scares him. That something is actually someone, Heinkel, and Jerax says that the level of force emitted by that guy is on a completely different level, so he must be a high-ranking knight just like him. He thinks that it's impossible for the McLains to have that many high-ranking knights, so if he manages to kill Heinkel, it will turn the tides in their favor. A knight then asks Jerax if he really plans to attack, as what they are seeing is an obvious trap, but Jerax doesn't care, saying that even if it is, there is no point in turning back now. He then says that they need to take care of them and return to the western castle walls. Hearing this, another knight says that Jerax must be worried about Jerome, since he's been panicking ever since the McLains have invaded. Jerax then goes on to think about his brother. He says that he and his brother are special. Hailing from a commoner family, while also being high-ranking knights, was a rare occurrence, even throughout the entire nation. Thanks to that, they were awarded the glorious title of Guard Captain of the Second Castle. It may have been because of their background, but Jerome has always been nervous that this position would be taken away. The unnecessary mistakes and his loss of composure at the slightest problem. His reputation is already declining among the other knights. Even if Jerax tries his best to help him, there are limits. Thus, this fight could be their last chance, so he needs to win at all costs. Next, Jerax and his knights are charging into battle. Turning their backs, the McLains realize they are being attacked from the back. Then they start running for the tunnels. Seeing this, Jerax wonders if they plan to escape through there. He thinks that they have more men, but they also have a high-ranking knight, so it's strange they didn't hesitate to run. Thus, Jerax realizes that this must be a trap. However, he tells his troops to keep chasing them. As they approach the tunnels, the McLains start shooting arrows. One of them even misses Jerax's head by inches. He barely gets scratched, and thinks that this must be why they've entered the tunnel, planning to shoot arrows from the dark. However, as a high-ranking knight, he says that these mere arrows won't be able to stop someone like him. He rushes forward, thinking that he can use his force to keep deflecting the arrows. Suddenly, one arrow strikes his horse in the neck. He jumps away, and manages to keep his stability. Then he sees a flashing light coming from the end of the tunnel. The McLains start raining arrows towards his troops, killing all the horses and even some of the knights within seconds. However, Jerax doesn't stop, and continues to rush forward, deflecting the arrows with his force, thinking that he doesn't have the luxury of helping the regular knights who can't deflect arrows on their own. He then shouts for everyone that can block arrows with their force to advance. Jerax thinks that if he just handles this one high-ranking knight, the remaining are just regular knights and mages that are weak in close combat. So at this rate, they have a chance. However, their hopes are about to be shattered, as Clayton uses a spell to conjure an earth wall. Jerax looks at this, and realizes that Clayton has just blocked their exit. Clayton then uses another spell and creates a swamp. This way, it is hard for the knight to move at all. Heinkel then steps from the shadows, stating that their horses have been killed with arrows, and that their way out is now blocked. Thus, the only thing that remains now is for him to have some fun fighting. Heinkel then looks at Jerax, with a smirk on his face, prepared to kill him. Jerax looks back, scared, thinking that this is a failure, and that they need to preserve as many of their men as they can and regroup immediately. He thinks that while he stops them, the other will break down the wall. He then hears a sound coming from above, which breaks his line of thought. Logan has just ordered his troops to charge towards the castle. Realizing this, Jerax can only think about what is going to happen to his brother. Logan and Clayton were discussing how to best utilize the golems. Clayton proposed using them to dig tunnels beneath the enemy wall, suggesting that collapsing it by undermining its supports would be relatively easy. Logan agreed that it was a viable strategy, but cautioned that they would need to begin digging far from the wall to avoid enemy archers. Even with the golem's strength, it would take a significant amount of time to reach the wall's foundations. Lost in thought for a moment, Logan suddenly devised a new plan. He announced that they would lure the enemy into the tunnels to divide their forces. Clayton, understanding Logan's intent, questioned whether the enemy would fall for such a simple trick. Logan admitted that the tunnels alone wouldn't be enough, which is why he intended to use earth magic to shake the ground. Clayton pointed out the difficulty of creating a full-scale earthquake, but Logan assured him that a single powerful tremor would suffice. The resulting disturbance would sow fear and confusion among the enemy, prompting them to split their forces to investigate, creating the perfect opportunity for Logan to launch his attack. On the rampart, Jerome is shitting his pants, not knowing how to react to the charging herd. He thinks that after holding for so long, they choose the exact moment when Jerax isn't there to attack. He realizes that they must have planned for it. Yet, he chose to trust his brother, thinking that he was indeed panicking too fast. Jerome takes his finger out of his mouth and gets furious. He turns towards his archers and gives them the signal to fire. As they shoot their arrows towards Ranyan, Jerome shouts not to let them approach. However, this won't be enough, as Logan charges his aura above. Because of this, none of the arrows hit them. Eileen and Ranyan rush towards the wall, prepared to attack. They leap from their horses in order to get to the top of the rampart. While doing this, Eileen even thinks about the training she's been doing for the past 2 months. The cliff she's been trying to climb over and over. She leaps high above the enemy soldiers and prepares to strike them down. As she reaches for the ground, she states that these walls are easy compared to the height of that damn cliff. Looking above, one of the knights can't believe a woman is the one attacking him. Eileen, on the other hand, can only think about how she will ensure to find glory in that battle, letting out a powerful war cry. She then strikes the enemy down in one swift strike. She then tries to catch her breath. This proves to be a mistake, as she also lets her guard down, and an enemy soldier stays behind her, prepared to end her for good. She turns her head around, in disbelief. In the next second, the tip of a sword stops just millimeters away from her pretty face. Seems like an ally has managed to pierce the soldier through his liver and right lung, thus saving Eileen. This was no other than Ranyan, telling Eileen to get a grip, as spacing out is dangerous. Looking at the scene, Eileen remains petrified, and asks herself if she might perhaps be scared. She thinks that she's only realized what it truly means to be in a battlefield after slaying a person for the first time. Realizing this, she clenches her fist, then she smacks herself on the face, leaving Ranyan astounded. Eileen tells Ranyan that she is sorry to show him such a shameful sight. Then she thanks him. Eileen regains her composure and looks towards the battlefield. Seeing this, Ranyan is proud of his sister-in-law. As he turns his back, Ranyan tells Eileen that he's heard she wishes for glory on the battlefield, and then he tells her that this is also his desire. Ranyan tells Eileen that he wishes to contribute to their why and become even stronger. To become stronger so that he doesn't lose to him, who grows stronger at a scary rate every day. Hearing this, Eileen also turns her back towards Ranyan and smiles as he does. They are now back to back, prepared to fight the enemies that have now surrounded them. They both let out a battle cry, and with murderous intent in their eyes, they command the enemy to approach. Then they leap in opposite directions, swinging their swords in every direction that has an enemy. From the base of the rampart, Logan hears all the fuss. He looks at the wall and thinks that those two are way too excited for what is happening. He wonders when did Ranyan become an intermediate rank and got a new sword, stating that he is proud of him. However, he quickly gets his feet back on the ground, saying that now isn't the time for praises, as it's still dangerous to run so wild right now, and that at this rate the high-ranking knights will be drawn to those two. Realizing this, Logan also leaps towards the rampart, prepared to join the fight and help his kin. Seeing him, the soldiers are scared shitless. He even manages to do a superhero landing that seems to unbalance some of the enemy. He then uses his aura and keeps them from approaching. It's clear that they are no match whatsoever for Logan. He then raises Lux, imbued with mana, and prepares to attack. In one swift motion, he takes the neck of one of the soldiers and thinks that this is the way in which he can attract the attention towards himself, as he needs to take down the guard captain of the Tomoto Castle. As he thinks that, Patrick starts shouting for the Bifrost Knights to pay attention. He states his name and raises his sword, full of fury. As he unleashes a powerful slash all around him, he tells the soldiers to run if they can. As he does that, he notices something from behind. This is Jerome, who has come to attack and stop Patrick. As they clench swords, Jerome tells Patrick that he will take his head for this. Patrick blocks his attack and mocks him, stating that in the end, he is the captain of the castle. As they fight, Jerome assesses the situation, acknowledging that Patrick is an advanced knight, but also taking account of the fact that just until recently, he was a high-ranking knight like him. Keeping this in mind, Jerome takes some distance and says that he can do it. He can take down Patrick. However, in the next second, Patrick unleashes a powerful attack. It unfortunately seems like Jerome wasn't able to stop this, as his head appears to be falling towards the ground. Jericho looks up and sees this. It appears like Jerome's head has ended right at his feet. A knight comes to ask what that golden flash just now. That is when he realizes what has happened and shuts his mouth. Looking down at his brother's head, Jericho can't comprehend what's happened. Patrick, however, seems unhinged as he just walks away and on to his next opponent. Seeing this, Jericho shouts that reinforcements are coming. He tells his soldiers not to give up, and they are stunned to hear their captain's voice. Jericho screams that he will be the one to take over command and tells his soldiers to fight till their last breath. Yet one of the knights tries to calm him down. Yet Jericho seems to be blinded by rage as he just keeps screaming to not let their comrade's death be in vain. This is when Logan jumps down from the rampart and says that there are no reinforcements. He then asks Jericho if anger has clouded his eyes as he prepares to strike him down. Seeing this, Jericho looks at Logan and shouts that he will kill every single one of them. However, I don't think he will manage to do so in the 30 milliseconds left before Logan cuts off his head. Although it seems like Jericho has managed to dodge the fatal part of Logan's attack. Yet Logan looks back at him and instead says that Jericho is going to be the one to die. Next, Heinkel and Clayton are talking to Logan and laughing, saying that thanks to Logan and Patrick, they were able to win without much effort, and that they didn't do much. Logan then places his hand on Clayton's shoulder, startling him. Clayton asks Logan why he is doing that, and Logan says that on that note, he's going to ask for one more favor from Clayton. Hearing this, Clayton is not sure what to expect. That is when Logan asks Clayton to create a large pool of water around the castle. That is before the enemies manage to arrive, of course. Bro is jumping from madmen to noble to a complete loony house with these faces. Nonetheless, a couple of hours later, the deed seems to be done. Clayton and his disciples are standing dead on the ground with no vigor at all. Seeing that they've managed to finish, Logan praises them, saying that not only have they completed the moat, but they've also managed to fix the castle walls as well. Logan goes on to say that earth magic really is incomparable to other types of magic, and Clayton replies by telling Logan that he is praising him too much. Clayton starts crying and starts having the strange feeling that their magic is starting to specialize in construction, and hopes for this not to be true. Logan looks over the walls and smiles. They have a moat that is 5 meters deep and wide, thinking that if you fall in with armor, even a knight would have a hard time walking out of it. Logan then turns to his soldiers and tells them not to spare any oil and to pour so much that they slip the moment they step on it. As Bifrost and his soldiers approach, Logan thinks that the defensive preparations are done and that it will soon be noon, which is well into their expected time frame of the arrival of the Bifrost army. And seeing the gloat, Logan thinks that it's perfect timing. As they rush towards the castle, Logan states the presence of the enemy and prompts his man to be ready for a fight. Logan, Heinkel, and Patrick look over the rampart, prepared to take on Bifrost. Bifrost and Sir Franz are also looking towards the castle, preparing to start their attack. Seeing this, Logan looks over at the army and thinks that the king will die at midnight, so they only have to stake it out there until then. Before, however, sees something that gets him mad. It appears that Logan has planted his house's flag in Bifrost's castle, which makes him ask how they dare to do something like that, and also dirty the surroundings of the castle so much. Bifrost then asks Sir Franz about Jerome and Jericho, and Sir Franz informs him that they appear to have been slain. Hearing this, Bifrost realizes that this must be the reason for which the McLain's were able to make a moat, and thinks that those damn fools weren't even able to hold the fort. Bifrost then shouts for Aslan, and Aslan reports to duty. Bifrost asks Aslan, also named the Super Speed Knight, Aslan Liar, the Bifrost's Knight's Grandmaster, what are the numbers of the enemy forces? And he replies that by what they've confirmed from their men that managed to get away, the McLain's have under 150 knights and less than 2,500 soldiers. Bifrost asks if there are any variables, and Aslan reports that their lord seems to be an advanced knight and around 10 people that appear to be earth mages. Hearing this, Bifrost thinks that Logan has prepared his sacred weapon. Bifrost then asks for the expected results, and Aslan starts thinking for a second. He then puts on a big smirk and starts laughing, saying that the only possible result is their overwhelming why. Looking over the rampart, Patrick states that the enemy has over 300 knights, and their number of soldiers easily exceeds 5,000. Logan acknowledges that, and says that they also have mages of the Wind Magic Tower, and that Roger Bifrost himself is a mage. Even though he is publicly known as a 4th Circle mage, in reality, he is in the 5th Circle, so caution must be taken. Patrick then looks at the crowd, and he doesn't seem happy at all. He says that on top of that, they also have Aslan Liar and France, the Moonlight Knight. Seeing this, Logan thinks that Patrick must be getting nervous from the difference in forces. This is when Bifrost starts talking and startles Logan, saying that in the lands that belong to their lord, He announces this to the filth that invaded without knowing their place. This is when Logan realizes that Bifrost has amplified his voice using magic and tells everyone to be ready to fire. Bifrost then shouts for everyone to hear that he will personally uproot the McLain's. Then he prompts his man to charge forward. Seeing this, Heinkel realizes that they are charging without shields and asks Logan if they are really that confident. Seeing this, Logan says that they will have to find out. He then tells his cavalryman to fire their crossbows. The arrows fly towards the enemy. However, they seem to be stopped by some kind of shield or force field. Seeing this, both Logan and Heinkel are stunned. The enemy soldiers, however, gain even more confidence. The mages next to Bifrost seem to be the one responsible for that magic defense. Bifrost even states that no matter how good their peculiar weapons are, they are nothing compared to magic. Logan, mad, looks down at the scene and realizes that the crossbows have been weakened by magic and that aiming at the knights with this will have no effect. Patrick shouts for the cavalry to aim towards the soldiers and for the knights to take their designated spots and prepare to fight. Logan then also screams for his soldiers to bash their heads in before they reach the top of the castle and thinks that war has long been a fight decided by force users. As Aslan and Franz are approaching, Logan says that if his crossbows are not working, then he will just take them on himself. He prepares his sword and asks himself, how will those two proceed to attack him? It seems that the first one to attack is Aslan, who leaps from his horse and tries to climb the rampart just like Logan and his knights have done. An image from the past appears at a banquet where some nobles ask how could that midget ever become a knight and ask if he could even pick up a sword. With a short stance, the looks of a monkey, long arms and a peculiar face, Aslan was always disregarded. He reminisces about the past, saying that his appearance has always caused him to be preyed upon wherever he went. But things are different now. He did not listen to those idiots, and with bone-breaking effort, he has become an advanced knight. As he approaches the top of the rampart, he thinks that now, everyone else is the prey. Just as he is about to reach his destination though, something happens. He realizes that Logan and his man have done something to the walls. However, he is not going to let that stop him. Eileen looks down and sees Aslan. With a poker face, he asks herself if that thing climbing is a monkey. Hearing this, Aslan is stunned, especially since it's coming from a woman knight. That is when he loses his composure and slips. He falls violently to the ground, and a knight announces his fall. Looking down, Eileen almost appears to be concerned about him. As Aslan is rising from the ground, a knight shouts for everyone to be aware of the walls. He says that not even an advanced knight was able to climb it, and hearing this, Aslan tells him to shut his worthless mouth. He then looks back towards the rampart. He is looking at Eileen, who is now preparing her sword. Aslan gets mad and tells Eileen that he will enjoy her thoroughly. On the rampart, Sir Franz has managed to climb to the top and is now standing before Patrick, who is acknowledging his feats, saying he has heard tales about the Moonlight Knight. Sir Franz is also unhinged, prepared to fight, yet Patrick seems mad to the bone, stating that he has heard of how Logan owes him a grudge. Next, on the rampart, the knights of the McLain are clashing with those of the attackers. On the same rampart, Eileen also seems to be fighting with someone, and not doing too well against them. As she rises from the ground, the person she is fighting even acknowledges her skill, saying she is not bad. This person is Aslan, who now asks if all the bitches in the McLain family are this daring. Seeing this, Eileen realizes that Aslan doesn't really care about the others, and instead is just focusing on her. More specifically, she realizes the fact that Aslan is just having fun with her. Aslan then mocks Eileen, asking her what is wrong, and if she is pissed because she is being toyed with by a monkey. Hearing what Eileen realizes she was right, and says that this is actually a relief. By Aslan giving her all his attention while toying with her, she is keeping an advanced knight busy. Aslan then laughs and tells Eileen that he will take his time playing with her. At the same time, Logan is fighting with 3 of the Bifrost knights. One of them even tries to irritate Logan, asking him what is wrong, as he has heard that the eldest son is a high-ranking knight, so there should be no problem for him. However, it looks like this mocking is only meant to be a distraction, as they haven't managed to push Logan back even an inch. The knights start discussing among themselves, and the one with the silver hair asks if the rumors about Logan wounding Sir Franz might be true after all. However, Logan interrupts him, asking what he is mumbling about. He goes on to say that the knights of Bifrost must be fighting with their mouths instead of their swords, making fun of the attackers. Hearing this, the silver-haired knight calls Logan an arrogant bastard and says that he shall see how long he can hold out for. The 3 of them then charge at Logan with full power. Logan doesn't even flinch and keeps his feet steady and his blade pointing towards the enemy. He then closes his eyes and prepares his counterattack. In an instant, he manages to get behind his enemies and also wound all of them at once. And these wounds seem to take a toll on the Bifrost knights. Looking at Logan over his shoulder, The silver-haired knight can't believe his speed. As Logan also looks towards them, he wonders when he managed to move behind them, as he couldn't even see Logan lift his feet off the ground. The man thinks that Logan had used his force to move faster, yet Logan closes his eyes and tells the man that what he is thinking is obvious for him. Seeing this, the knights get annoyed. Logan turns his head and once again mocks the attackers, asking if they can't move because their legs are trembling in fear. One of the other two knights tries to calm down his silver-hair companion, saying that Logan is an amazing foe and that they have to be careful. Seeing this, Logan thinks that the high-ranking knights have this title for a reason, so they won't fall to the same shallow mockery twice. On top of that, all of them have also done something remarkable. As Logan was attacking, they've managed to protect their vitals with precise and minimal force usage. Logan then sheds a sweat. He clings harder to his sword, saying that he should forget the Knight of the Moonlight for now, as he is more worried about Aslan, the Swift Knight. He decides that he cannot waste any time fooling around with these guys, so he leaps in to attack and get it over as fast as possible. Seeing this, the knights prepare to withstand Logan's attack. However, they might be no match for Logan, as in the same instant he uses the spirit shadow thought by Felix and gets right behind the silver-haired knight, prepared to strike him down. The knight quickly realizes what is happening, but doesn't have the time to react. Thankfully for him though, his green-haired comrade sees through Logan's movement and attacks him in order to save his friend. In the same second, Logan places his foot on the silver-haired knight's head and prepares to move once again. He leaps through the air, aiming directly for the green-haired knight. The man he attacked seems to disappear after blocking Logan's attack, and the mustached knight calls Logan a bastard. Logan hears this and turns towards his mustached opponent. He then slams his sword into the ground and imbues it with force. He does that in order to release a powerful wave of force going from the ground up and towards the silver-haired knight. Seeing this, the mustached knight remains stunned. After Logan does this, he rushes towards the place where the explosion caused by force left behind a cloud of dirt. Just as he does this, the green-haired knight appears behind Logan and prepares to slash him from behind. As he unleashes his power, he clenches his teeth and puts everything he has in this power. He then smirks, full of sweat, and with some blood in the corner of his mouth. He thinks this is it, that he's got Logan. Unfortunately for him, this is not the case, as Logan once again moves quickly behind his back and prepares to strike him down. Logan easily takes down his green-haired opponent and then lets out a sound of relief. Seeing the power and precision Logan has, the silver-haired knight asks Logan just who he is. Barely standing on his feet, trembling and bleeding, he asks Logan what is up with those movements of his. He means to continue the sentence, saying that Logan mows like a ghost, when all of a sudden, the tip of a sword drives right through his chest. Even Logan is stunned to see this. It appears that this is Runyan's doing, who is happy to see his brother is unharmed. Seeing his brother, Logan places his hand on his shoulder, and Runyan says that as soon as he saw Logan fighting 3 high-ranking knights, he came running to help. He then says that it seems he had managed to stab the enemy in the heart just in time, when appears behind Runyan, and argues that he was the one to cut their heads off first. Hearing this, Runyan gets annoyed and turns around to contradict, saying that he was the one to stab them in the heart first, then continues, saying that he was the one to cut off their heads first. These two act more like brothers than Logan and Runyan do. They start fighting in front of Logan, with Runyan telling to stop spouting lies, as this is very unlike a knight, and replying by telling Runyan to listen to his own advice, and stating that, with the way Runyan is acting, Rhea is twice the knight Runyan is. They then both turn towards Logan, with Runyan asking his brother if he hasn't seen him killing the knight, and saying he asks for a proper judgment. Seeing this, Logan smirks and starts laughing. He then bumps both of them in the head. Logan then says that there is no judgment to be done, as from what he's seen, they've both done what they've said they've done at the same time, and instructs them to maintain their sense of tension on the battlefield. After hearing this, they both quiet down and apologize to Logan. He then turns his feet and says that thanks to that, he now has more freedom, and says that he has to hurry. Next, Eileen is still fighting Aslan, and she seems to be trembling, losing hard. However, she does not give up, sticking her sword deep into the ground and using it to keep herself standing. Seeing this, Aslan is impressed, telling Eileen that at least her spirit matches up to a good man's, as she didn't even let out a single cry of pain. He then goes on to say that this is good, as this is what makes it fun. Eileen, however, is not that thrilled, as she thinks that she is losing strength in her sword arm. She then asks herself if it was arrogant of her to think she could stand against an advanced knight. If Aslan had intended to kill Eileen outright, she would have been dead a long time ago. In the next instant, Aslan leaps towards Eileen, aiming to grab her by the neck, and his speed is incredible. He grabs Eileen by the neck and lifts her up into the air as she grasps for air. He even mockingly tells her how she looks terrified. Aslan then smirks and tells Eileen to resolve herself, as he is going to take good care of her. He clenches Eileen's neck tighter, and she tries to hold onto his arm with her trembling hands. Then she spits right in the middle of Aslan's face. As Aslan raises Eileen even higher into the air, she tells him to go fuck himself, as she'd rather kill herself than do what he is saying. Hearing this, Aslan laughs and puts on a creepy smirk. His facial expression then completely changes to one of seriousness, and he asks Eileen if she thinks she has any choice in the matter. He then tightened his grip, hurting Eileen, and telling her that he will take his time showing her hell. He then laughs, enjoying Eileen grunting and gasping for air. This moment doesn't last long though, as something seems to bother him. That is when he turns his head over his shoulder, in order to see Logan prowling at his back, with a swift smile on his face, prepared to strike him down in the next instant. Seeing Logan's blade approaching, Aslan doesn't even flinch, and instead asks Logan why he doesn't want to play with him. Just as Logan hits Aslan with his attack, everything is engulfed by an explosion. Aslan managed to parry the attack, however. He was sent back several meters. Seeing this, Aslan is intrigued. Logan then goes on to help Eileen rise from the ground in order to take her to safety. Logan asks her if she can stand, and Eileen tells her that she is fine. Seeing this, Logan tells her to go to the military doctor, and Eileen agrees. Aslan looks at the scene and tells Logan that he is getting in the way of his fun and places his sword on his left shoulder. He then puts up a scary look on his face and says that since Logan is taking away Eileen, it means he wants to be the one to replace her. Logan looks at Asla, and a sweat breaks from his forehead. He looks down at his hand and says that even though he was the one to ambush Aslan, it's his hand that is feeling sore. That's when Logan realizes that this won't play out the way he fought with the high-ranking knights. Aslan and Logan are fighting, and their speed is so incredible, they can't even be seen by the other soldiers standing around. They only have one question. They knew Aslan was fast, but they wonder how Logan is keeping up with him. Aslan then tells Logan that his speed is not bad, and it seems like he has a good artifact in his hands. Hearing this, Logan thinks that his master is the one that gave it to him. They both then clench swords, letting out a whirl of wind. They are both pushed back by their strength and prepare to strike again. Looking towards Aslan, he realizes that he must have an artifact as well. It was only after fighting him, but those quick movements are made with the power of an artifact. Seeing the way Logan looks at him, Aslan says that he can hear Logan's thoughts. He says that all of them, our noble young masters, are the same, that even though their enemy is standing right in front of them, they all space out, hesitate, lost in thought, and when they can't keep up with his speed, that is when they all fall. He then tells Logan that he will be no different, and jumps to attack him. He wields his sword forward, striking Logan with all his force. He then lets his sword fall down with a look of disgrace on his face. However, what he sees surprises him. Logan countered his attack, injuring his right shoulder. Unfortunately, Logan is not in a good spot either, as he coughs blood after his attack. Seeing Logan's force, Aslan says that Franz was right, and Logan is really using a strange secret technique. Aslan then jumps once again to attack Logan, and their waves of force clench with each other. Aslan looks frightened, as he can't get to Logan anymore. Logan, on the other hand, is smiling. Logan thinks that he already knew Aslan would hear about his secret technique from Franz, so it will be impossible for him to land something unexpected. That's when Logan thinks that he must defeat Aslan as quickly as possible. Looking at his situation, Aslan realizes that Logan is trying to corner him. This being said, Aslan gets mad, as no one should be able to corner him, the highest-ranking knight. Logan looks at Aslan with a murderous intent in his eyes, preparing to destroy everything that stays in his way. Things don't appear his way though, as in the next second, Aslan has his sword millimeters away from his eye. Lucky for Logan, his attack misses. Logan looks behind him and notices the hole left in the ground by the attack. He looks towards Aslan and asks himself if it was really luck. That is when he realizes it wasn't luck, rather it was Aslan slipping up. The ambush on Castle Tomoto, the injury he sustained from an opponent he underestimated, and the persistent McLain soldier whom he's fighting with in Bifrost. Logan concludes that Aslan has become impatient because of his unexpected situation. Logan calms down and thinks that he can use all of this against Aslan. He then leaps forward with all his speed and strength, prepared to attack Aslan once again. Seeing this, Aslan prepares to counter, asking Logan if he's going to use another trick. They face each other, and Aslan has a strange look on his face. Seeing Logan's stance, he must have realized something. He thinks that Logan is not going to dodge his next attack, and it seems to be true, as Logan seems to be heading right towards the tip of Aslan's sword. Even Aslan calls Logan a crazy bastard for this. Aslan asks Logan if he wants for them to die together, while Logan mockingly asks him if there is something wrong. He asks Aslan if he is scared, which makes him even more angry, and he looks like he is losing control. Aslan points his sword forward and asks Logan if he really thinks that he will just stay there and take it. From their silhouettes, it looks like they managed to impale one another. In reality, this might not be the case. Logan seems to fall to the ground, while Aslan is still standing. Aslan is hurt, but alive. Seeing what just happened, Aslan starts laughing. He has managed to defeat Logan, calling him an idiot, as he came at him ready to die, yet they merely scratched his rib. Aslan screams that this is his win against McLain. Then Aslan is disturbed by a sound coming from behind him. This is Eileen, who has come to help Logan. Seeing this, Aslan calls it good timing. He tells Eileen that he is going to also take care of her now, as she puts on a look of terror and disbelief, seeing Logan's body. Aslan even goes as far as saying that he's going to take the sword out of Logan's stomach and use it on Eileen. Things don't seem to go as per his plan though, as next, a light shining from behind catches his eye. This is the bracelet of resurrection at work. Seeing this, Aslan wonders why is that bracelet glowing, thinking that only priests are able to emit a light such as that, and then he realizes that there is no way this is happening. He tries to once again attack Logan, saying that he must destroy that bracelet right then. Thankfully to Logan, Eileen stops him, pointing her sword at his neck. Aslan, however, manages to parry it. Eileen then shouts that she has no idea what is going on, but there is no way that she's letting him get into Logan's way. Aslan doesn't seem to care much about this though, only thinking that if it weren't for the state he is in, that attack of Eileen's wouldn't have done much damage. Aslan then pushes Eileen away, using only one arm, and as he turns back he remains stunned. Logan calls him a monkey and tells him that it's now time for round 2, but this time, with different weapons, as Logan also took Aslan's blade. Seeing this, Aslan realizes that he is in trouble now that Logan has his sword. He then sees Lux on the ground and goes to pick it up. This is when Logan realizes how Aslan's artifact works. He looks at Aslan and says that when he injected force into his sword, the mana within heightens his senses, and it makes him feel like everything around him is slowing down. Logan then says that this must be what allowed Aslan to become the super speed knight. He then licks the sword, just like Aslan used to do, and tells him that now the sword is his. Seeing this, Aslan is stunned. He shouts at Logan that that is his weapon, and asks him if he truly believes that he can handle it like he used to. He doesn't get to finish his sentence though, as Logan seems to be on track with using the sword, and coming for Aslan fast. In one swift strike, he manages to break through his side armor, and injure his ribs even further. However, Logan says that this was not his intention, as he actually aimed for the heart. He then smiles, looking back, and says that this is unfortunate. As the blood falls to the ground, Aslan tells Logan to go fuck himself, and asks him how he managed to recover that hole in his stomach. He looks towards Logan, and asks him how a kid like him has managed to get an artifact like that bracelet. The bracelet of regeneration he has received from the king has a magic that can change any mortal wound to a mere light scratch. As long as Logan is not instantly killed, he can still recover. That being said, Logan does admit it was a gamble to bet on it, as he almost died. In any case, Logan says that now is the time to remove one of Bifrost's key men. He says that he will end things there, and prepares to cut Aslan's head off. Seeing this, the Bifrost knights attack Logan from behind in order to save their advanced knight. Logan looks back and realizes he must do something about it before he kills Aslan. He then manages to parry all their attacks at once with his sword. He even struggles, saying that now is not the time for something like this to happen. Aslan looks at Logan's uncovered back and thinks about what he has to do next. He thinks that whatever happens, Logan must die here. Unfortunately for Aslan, Eileen is not going to let that happen, as she also jumps to attack him. Once again, he manages to parry her attack with ease, yet Eileen remains just as confident. He shouts for Aslan to not even dare think about striking Logan behind his back. That is when Aslan's wound from earlier opens, and blood spills all around. As Logan battles the other knights, something catches his attention, a voice from behind, ordering someone not to move. When Logan turns back, Aslan is being helped by some other knight away from the wall. Aslan jumps and runs away from the battle. Seeing this, Eileen asks Logan if they shouldn't follow him, yet Logan tells her that Bifrost and his Wind Tower mages are waiting down here, and that following him would only cost them more than it would be worth. That is when Logan gets annoyed and grips his sword hard. He then raises high into the air and shouts for everyone to hear that he, Logan McLain, has defeated the Super Speed Knight. He does that by holding Aslan's sword, which the Bifrost soldiers and knights immediately recognize. Seeing this, Bifrost calls it a sorry sight. A mage then asks him if they should join in, but he states that even if they strike now, Logan would still manage to defend the castle. On top of that, his shout has destroyed their troops' morale. He then asks a knight how Aslan is doing, and he tells Bifrost that reports indicate his life is not at risk. That being said, they didn't bring advanced potions for this war, so he won't be able to participate any further. Hearing this, Bifrost calls it a nonsense, and acknowledges that the McLains have really prepared themselves for this war. The longer this goes, the more it troubles them, That is when Before says that they should see how long the McLain's can last. That is when Bifrost shouts for all his troops to retreat, and they do so. Seeing this, the McLain's wonder why are they doing this, asking themselves if they win. While this is happening, Franz seems to have been fighting Patrick, who doesn't seem to be in a good shape. Hearing that they should retreat, Franz is not happy about it. He tells Patrick that he is in luck, and then turns to leave. He tells Patrick that the fight was going to come to a close soon, and he doesn't seem to be wrong about it. He then mocks Patrick, saying that he has figured it out now, and that even the McLain's advanced knight isn't much. He then leaps off, leaving Patrick alone. That is when Logan steps in, to check on his father. Patrick asks Logan if he is alright, and he replied affirmatively. Patrick then apologizes, saying that he was only able to hold Franz there, but to defeat him. Hearing this, Logan thinks that even though they are both advanced knights, there was bound to be a difference, as Patrick only rose to that level recently. Logan places his hand on his father's shoulder, asking him to rest, as the enemy is tired, so they have some time before they invade again. Patrick agrees, telling Logan that he should do the same, and they fall down, leaning against the wall next to each other. While this is happening, Island is patching up Victor, and Ranyan is talking to Heinkel. Logan and Patrick are standing still, waiting for the enemy to attack, saying that they hope they will wait until midnight. Unfortunately for them, this is not going to be the case, as one of the soldiers looking out notices something strange. A different flag, rising over, with an eagle over a flame. That is the army of Parita that has come to help Bifrost in taking down McLain. Seeing this, both Logan and Patrick are left speechless, as they could have never anticipated this. Bifrost and Parita are talking, with Befores asking if Max bringing his army there himself means that they are joining his war effort. Parita says that he knows this is not much for the Lord of the Southwest, but he rushed there as fast as he could, hoping to be of some help. Saying this, Parita thinks that with his army and Bifrost combined, McLain's defeat is guaranteed. On the wall, looking at the scene, Logan realizes that the reason for which Parita is doing this is only to get on Bifrost's good side, and Patrick calls them filthy bastards for this. Seeing what is happening, Patrick tells Logan that they have no other choice than to do it, referring to some backup plan, and Logan agrees. Logan says that they've got everything ready. Inside the castle's town, a family is hiding inside their house, at the corner of a room. The kid asks his mother how long they have to stay there for, and his mother says that it will only be a little longer, and that it's still dangerous to go outside. The kid nods, and the mother looks down at him. The father then says that they should pray together, and they all gather and hug. They pray that when the new year dawns tomorrow, this war ends. Outside the walls, Bifrost shouts for his man. He tells his man to attack, and brings him the heads of the McLain. On the walls, the McLains shoot arrows towards their enemies. However, only some of the soldiers are affected by the arrows. Kaisalon sees this, and tells Logan that only the Paritas are being taken down by the attacks, yet Logan says that it doesn't matter, and that they should keep firing. Franz is deflecting everything with his ship sword, and calls the McLains pesky fuckers. He then screams for his man to hear that the McLains are prepared for a siege, so they shouldn't relax until their feet touch the walls themselves. Franz and his knights then jump in order to claim the walls. Seeing this, Logan tells his soldiers that the enemy is climbing, and instructs everyone to drop them into the moat. Franz sees this, and thinks of something clever. He uses his whip sword to strike the wall. He clinches to the wall, and uses his sword as a rope. As he is above everyone, he sees Logan, and aims to take him down first. As he lands before him, he tells Logan that he will end him for good this time. However, an attack is coming for him from the side. He notices, and realizes he has to do something. A big explosion engulfs everything, to the point where you can't even see the fighters anymore. However, it seems like Franz has managed to parry Patrick's attack with ease. He even acknowledges that Patrick was much faster than before, and also that he has a great sword now. Hearing this, Patrick tells Franz that the sword had the name Velocitus inscribed on it, and goes on to polish it with his glove. This is when Patrick remembers Logan's words, as he gave him the sword, with Logan stating that it didn't suit him well, and that Patrick would use it better. However, Patrick thinks that Logan was just being kind. He then tells Logan to go. He may be weaker than the Moon Knight, but with the sword Logan has given him, he is confident he can handle him now. Logan nods his head and leaves. Franz looks at Patrick and realizes that he has taken Aslan's sword. He then leaps forward, going head to head with Patrick, saying that he will take the sword back in no time. Logan then uses his force to move faster. As he goes away, he thinks that he can trust his father with this. He then notices something with the corner of his eye, is battling with some knights all by himself. He is ambushed from the back, and he prepares to defend himself. That is when Logan lands from the air and takes one of them down as he does. Victor is stunned to see Logan like this. Logan then defeats another knight without even looking at him, and he asks Victor if he can still fight. Victor says that he is good, and that he could have taken those guys down himself. Logan is glad to hear that, and then tells to drop as many people climbing the walls as he can. He then tells him that doesn't work. He has a plan B, which catches Victor's attention. Logan looks him dead in the eye, and then tells him that if that doesn't work, to just let them climb the walls. From a distance, Parita and Bifrost with his mages assess the situation. Bifrost states that there's something strange going on, and Parita asks what seems to be the matter. Bifrost continues to explain that their people are climbing the walls much easier than earlier, and that they aren't putting that much effort into defending as they did before, and Parita says that maybe they are getting tired. However, Bifrost isn't satisfied with this, and knows that something is afoot. As he looks at Logan and fighting, he states that if that is not the CSE, they must be plotting something. Logan then looks over the edge of the walls, and realizes that there's almost no enemies below anymore. He then uses his mana to amplify his voice and prepares to shout for every single one of his soldiers to hear. He tells everyone to retreat. Hearing this, everyone from Ranyan to Eileen and Patrick are stunned, and Befores is looking at the scene unsure of what is going to happen next. He then looks down, and he feels an earthquake, and says that this is impossible. That is when he realizes that this must be Logan's doing. Clayton and his disciples are the one creating this earthquake, and it only has one purpose. Clayton pushes through with everything he has, and says that Logan is really asking for something ridiculous. As this is happening, the troops of the McLain's are retreating, and telling the knights to guard the normal soldiers and let them descend. Looking at the scene, the Befores knights don't know what to make of it, asking themselves if the McLain's perhaps got scared of the earthquake. That is when Clayton's magic can be seen taking its toll on the walls, carking them all around. In the next instant, the walls are falling down, burning everyone that was still near them. Seeing this, Bifrost is blind with fury. Parita, however, simply doesn't understand what is happening. With the walls down, Bifrost calls the McLain's rats for how they are fighting this war. Amidst the rubble, Clayton is kneeling, with all his energy depleted. Logan comes running to check on him, shouting his name as he is running. Clayton then looks up, and tells Logan that just as he has ordered, he and his disciples have used the last of their energy to topple all the walls. Logan tells them that they've done an amazing job, as a significant portion of their enemies must have been buried together with the walls. Clayton then says that with the physical capabilities of the knights, they should be okay, and Logan agrees. Logan then looks over to Bifrost and says that this will all be over soon. Bifrost comes near the collapsed walls and says that what Logan had done is complete nonsense, as he has destroyed his last line of defense with his own hands. He then goes to conjure up a spell, telling Logan that all he has done is to speed up his demise. He then prepares to unleash a powerful attack over Logan and his people. Seeing this, Logan tells Clayton to take his man and back off. Victor, Ranyan, Patrick, and Logan seem to be in the first line of defense, and Patrick wishes to ask Logan one more time if he is sure his plan will work. Logan looks at Bifrost and tells his father not to worry, and just as Bifrost is prepared to unleash his attack, something happens that disturbs him. A great red light appears above the city, which makes everyone stop. Everybody looks up in disbelief, not sure what is happening. That is when a memory from Logan's past appears, and he states that he remembers it clearly. That day, when on every tower of the nation, a red light appeared notifying people of the news flashed brightly. Seeing this, Bifrost looks up, with a crazy look of fury and terror, saying that this is really bad for him. Two laser-like beams shot forth from the highest towers of the palace. Ranyan, witnessing this spectacle, wondered at their meaning, while Patrick inquired if some calamity had befallen the royal family. He then turned his gaze toward Logan. Logan, glancing over his shoulder, offered a smile and a nod to Patrick, who returned the gesture. Logan then attempted to reason with Bifrost, insisting he must grasp the significance of the light, that something had clearly transpired at the palace. Logan shouted at Bifrost to cease the war and establish communication with the king, but Bifrost, sweating profusely, remained indecisive and hesitant. Clutching the reins tightly, he lamented the unfortunate timing of this event, occurring at what seemed a perfect opportunity to utterly crush the McLain's once and for all. Sir Franz observed his commander, inquiring as to their next course of action, awaiting his command with anticipation. Bifrost, however, remained lost in thought, his head bowed in contemplation. Then, to Sir Franz's utter surprise, Bifrost prepared to launch his attack anew, urging his men to ready themselves for battle with renewed vigor. Franz, incredulous, hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to draw his sword and join the fray. He ultimately did so, and they once again prepared to attack, intent on finally and decisively destroying the McLain's. Patrick, witnessing this madness, cried out, calling him a madman, while Heinkel questioned whether he would truly continue this folly, even after witnessing the signal from the palace. Patrick demanded to know if Bifrost would dare defy a royal order, but Bifrost retorted that he didn't understand their nonsensical ramblings. Preparing his final assault, a crazed look gleaming in his eyes, Bifrost declared that all he saw were them, the imbeciles foolish enough to attack his seemingly impregnable castle. Observing the unfolding situation, Logan realized that Bifrost had completely and utterly lost his senses. He remarked that he hadn't believed Bifrost would attack, despite the immense risk of being branded a traitor, and concluded that their only viable option now might be to fight for their very survival. Bifrost again issued commands to his soldiers, rallying his men to fight with a singular, unified purpose. As his drool splattered and the veins on his forehead bulged menacingly, he exclaimed that his sole objective was to execute the red-headed filth that dared oppose him. Just then, a voice, one he recognized, interrupted him, cutting through his rage. Bifrost stopped, trembling slightly. Looking behind him, Logan saw someone running towards them with urgency. It was Clayton, carrying a communication orb, its light flickering. Reaching Bifrost, Clayton, panting heavily, informed the person on the other end of the communication channel, the Minister of Defense, that they were at Castle Tomoto, and that Bifrost was refusing to halt the ongoing war. The Minister of Defense, his tone almost nonchalant and unconcerned, inquired of Bifrost if he intended to commit high treason against the crown. At that moment, Bifrost realized he was truly and utterly cornered, with no escape. The minister then announced, for all present to hear, his voice ringing out across the battlefield, that the king had passed away, and that all nobles of the empire were required to attend the funeral, as this solemn occasion took precedence over all other obligations. He then fixed his gaze on Bifrost and stated, his voice unwavering, that this of course included any ongoing wars. Count Bifrost looked away, his gaze falling to the ground in defeat, leaving Franz once again wondering what his next move would be. Logan and Patrick watched him intently, prepared to fight if necessary. However, the conflict appeared to have reached a temporary cessation, as Bifrost bowed from his horse, declaring that his house would abide by the royal will. The minister smiled, a hint of mockery in his tone, remarking that he had better, implying he had no other choice in the matter. Even Clayton seemed surprised by this sudden and unexpected capitulation. As Bifrost turned to leave, he addressed the McLain's, calling them rats, and warning them not to think for a moment that this was truly over for them. He then commanded his men to retreat and departed from the scene. Patrick was stunned into silence, while Logan remained uneasy and apprehensive. Clayton and Heinkel were also in shock, watching Bifrost ride into the distance. Only Ranyan and Victor seemed genuinely pleased with this turn of events. The other soldiers erupted in cheers, overjoyed to be alive and to have avoided further bloodshed. One even fell onto his back in relief, exclaiming his joy, while his friend admitted he had feared the worst. Patrick approached his son, acknowledging their victory with a broad smile. Logan, however, pondered what might have transpired had events unfolded differently, a sense of unease lingering within him. If Clayton wouldn't have brought the communication orb, Roger Bifrost would have attempted to wipe them out with his magic. He clenches his sword hard and says that he would have never thought that human anger could be such a variable, and that he shouldn't be relying solely on the past from now on. He then realizes something. Logan turns towards Clayton and asks him how he knew the orb would come in handy, and Clayton states that he was actually taking shelter in the tents, but he brought it because the palace contacted the orb there. Clayton continues by saying he didn't know the situation was that urgent, yet Logan simply places his hand on his neck and thanks Clayton, telling him that his tower truly had the largest contribution in this war. Hearing this, Clayton asks if it would be okay for him to ask for additional funding, considering Logan's thoughts, and Logan tells him that this is all right and that he will let Dwayne know. As Logan turns away, thinking that he should also check on the others, Clayton signals an okay to his disciple, who calls him the best. Eileen stood alone amidst the jubilant soldiers, a look of disbelief etched on her face. A prominent bruise or smudge of dirt marred her cheek. She struggled to comprehend that the battle was truly over. Just then, Logan broke her reverie, walking towards her and calling her name. Eileen's face instantly lit up at the sight of him, her cheeks flushing crimson, her beautiful blue eyes widening. Logan, taken aback by her reaction, admitted he had expected her to be angry, not happy. Eileen, confused, asked him why she would be angry. Logan questioned her about her fear, pointing out that she had nearly died facing an advanced knight in her first real battle. Eileen simply crossed her arms, closed her eyes, looked away, and nonchalantly told Logan that such experiences were simply part of a knight's training. However, her bravado seemed to falter, as Logan noticed a slight tremor in her hands. Eileen, attempting to conceal it, brushed off her shoulder as if dismissing the matter, but her trembling was evident. Seeing through her facade, Logan smiled and let it go. He then praised Eileen, telling her she was amazing, confessing that in his own first battle, he had barely managed to avoid fleeing in terror. Eileen, hearing this, protested that it was nonsense and apologized, saying she hadn't intended to insult him. Logan continued, a memory from his past surfacing, an image of himself trembling before an enemy, frozen in fear, on the verge of tears. He confided in Eileen that few knew of this, but that was the reality of his first real fight. He had been paralyzed, rooted to the spot. He then explained that this was why he had been so worried for her, but she had far exceeded his expectations, accomplishing more than he could have ever imagined. His words filled Eileen with joy. He reached for her hand, intending to address her as lady, but then rephrased, calling her sir, and expressing his hope to witness many more great feats from her in the future. Eileen, completely captivated, her entire face now a vibrant shade of red, was left utterly speechless. Moments later, her familiar broad smile returned, her eyes shining like glass. She clasped hands with Logan and earnestly assured him that she would always strive to do her best. The following day at sunrise, Patrick commanded the troops fit for duty to announce to the populace that Castle Tomoto now belonged to the McLain family. Discussions then arose regarding the necessity of an immediate return to the capital for the king's funeral. Logan, however, suggested that no one would particularly notice if some obscure baron was slightly delayed. Heinkel concurred with Logan's assessment, but Patrick appeared less certain. Patrick emphasized the importance of recouping the losses incurred during the war, adding that while it was wise not to be excessively late, they should expedite matters and depart as soon as possible. For the moment, their priority was rebuilding the castle walls, a task that Logan promptly delegated to Clayton, much to Clayton's apparent displeasure. While overseeing the golems, Clayton's disciples expressed uncertainty about their roles, questioning whether they were mages or laborers, with one disciple even doubting his ability to survive the arduous work. Witnessing their distress, Clayton turned towards his disciple, Grick, and encouraged him to persevere a little longer, reminding him of the promised extended vacation awaiting them afterward. Just then, an extraordinary event occurred with the mana within Grick's heart. His core appeared to be evolving. He had ascended to a fourth circle mage. Clayton was overjoyed at his student's progress, musing that perhaps the arduous labor had somehow contributed to this advancement. This fortuitous incident later became the foundation for the McLain's golem mages to embark on the path of war engineering. The narrative then shifts to Grand, the capital city, where Logan's teacher Duke Felix stood gazing out through the glass doors of his balcony. A servant approached him, informing him of the arrival of Logan and Patrick McLain. With a menacing look crossing his face, Duke Felix instructed the servant to admit them. In the hallway, the servant inquired of Logan and Patrick whether they had come directly to see the Duke upon arriving in the capital, suggesting they might be weary from their journey. Patrick, however, asserted that no knight worthy of the name would succumb to fatigue from such travel. Both Logan and Patrick, dressed in their respective attire, followed the servant toward the Duke's chambers. Logan then asked the servant how his master fared. The servant replied that the Duke seemed deeply affected by the news of the king's death, noting that no one had anticipated His Majesty's sudden demise. As they continued walking, Logan inquired if the servant knew the cause of the king's death. The servant explained that His Majesty had collapsed while attending to national affairs, with the temple attributing it to a cerebral hemorrhage brought on by overwork. Upon hearing this, Logan stopped abruptly, incredulous. In his previous life, the king had died of sudden cardiac arrest due to old age. Yet now, the cause of death had changed. While he acknowledged that a cerebral hemorrhage was a common cause of death in old age, something about the situation felt amiss. Inside the room, the men were seated around a table. Logan stood directly before Felix, who appeared deeply troubled. Observing him, Logan reflected on how only a few months had passed since their last meeting, yet Felix seemed to have aged considerably in that short span. Felix then looked at Logan, commenting that he didn't look well, which Logan denied. Felix then admitted that his aging body was finally catching up with him. At this point, Luis, his servant, interjected, stating that his lordship had overexerted himself due to his investigations into His Majesty's death. Felix, however, cut him off with a sharp word. Observing the interaction, Logan realized the king's death had affected Felix profoundly. Felix then seemed to remember something. He turned to Patrick and apologized for the delay, explaining that Logan had already told him much about Patrick. Patrick responded by placing a hand on his chest and saying that he had heard his incompetent son was indebted to him and that it was an honor to meet this esteemed grace, whom he had long admired. Felix looked away, apologizing that he couldn't greet Patrick in a better frame of mind, given the circumstances. Gazing at his hands, Felix lamented that during the past week, his aging bones had never felt so powerless. Hearing this, Logan asked if the situation in the capital was truly so dire. Felix lowered his head and confirmed that it was indeed grave. He then became visibly angry, denouncing Juan and Jordan, calling them bastards. Both Logan and Patrick were taken aback by this outburst. Logan's thoughts raced, recalling what Felix had said about Juan Douglas, an influential figure in the First Prince's faction, and Jordan Valtermine, a similarly influential figure in the Second Prince's faction. Felix placed a hand on his forehead, lamenting that at this rate, the nation might fracture, as the two dukes had abandoned any pretense of balance between their factions and had descended into open hostility. They had even dared to pressure him regarding the Third Prince's safety. Patrick, unable to contain himself, exclaimed that it was a shameless act. Logan acknowledged that this was all because Felix was the patron of a prince yet to come of age. Felix confirmed this, adding that if he wished to safeguard the prince's life, he had to align himself with one of the factions. Logan then realized that if Felix continued to resist their demands, something terrible would happen. The Third Prince's life would be in danger. However, Logan reasoned that in reality, no faction would risk drawing unwanted attention by having the prince die suddenly at this juncture, though it could happen in the future. In his past life, there had been numerous assassination attempts on the Third Prince, and Logan was determined to prevent those incidents from recurring. As Logan pondered these matters, Felix declared that he could not comply with their demands. He then turned to Luis, instructing him to escort the Third Prince to his estate. Logan, however, interjected, stating that Felix could not do that. He argued that no matter how much Felix desired to keep the prince by his side, he could not remain with him constantly. Instead, Felix should publicly declare that he would not involve himself in the factional struggles. He explained that what they truly feared was not his refusal to join their side, but the possibility of him joining the opposing faction. Witnessing Logan's actions, Patrick whispered to him to wait, reminding him that they had come to request aid from the Sword Duke because of the incident with Bifrost. Logan replied that they could resolve their family's problems independently. Hearing this, Patrick fell silent, refraining from further comment. He then apologized to Felix for his shameful outburst, saying that Logan was right. Felix, however, seemed unconcerned by the interruption. He simply stated that he had been too stubborn and had failed to see the bigger picture. Felix then rose from his seat, thanking Logan and stating that since he could fulfill his duty with a single word, there was nothing more to add. He then walked towards the window in his study and declared that the fate of their nation would unfold as heaven decreed. Observing his teacher, Logan reflected that, unlike in his previous life, Felix, instead of being pressured into neutrality, had proactively chosen his own path. This was a definite, practical advantage for Logan. As Logan was departing Felix's study, Felix called out to him, saying that he couldn't assist his family at that moment, but if Logan feared things might go awry, he should seek him out. Hearing this, Logan's characteristic smirk appeared. Recognizing this as an opportunity too good to pass up, he inquired of the Duke if he was implying he was willing to grant any request Logan might make. Glancing at Logan over his shoulder, Felix realized the trap he had inadvertently set for himself, but merely laughed it off, telling Logan that if he was capable, he would fulfill whatever Logan asked. Logan, astonished, couldn't believe his luck. He had been half joking, never expecting such a boon. He then surprised Felix by saying that he had no immediate request. He continued, placing his hand over his heart in a gesture of respect, and telling Felix that if he ever did have a request, he would ask him to deeply and carefully consider it, thinking it would be best to save this favor as insurance for something more significant. Felix agreed with Logan's prudence and nodded. He really does look so much older. I almost feel sorry for him. A man burst into the room, breathless, with urgent news for the Duke. Apologizing for the intrusion, he relayed his message to Felix. Two superhumans had entered the estate. One from the First Prince's faction, known as the Tempest Blade, Wicked Kalia, addressed the other, calling him Musclehead and expressing surprise at meeting him there. The other, Marquis Luther Kale, from the Second Prince's faction, known as the Half-Giant, retorted that Kalia had stolen his line and called him Bones. Wicked then taunted Marquis, asking if he was there to receive a beating from the Sword Duke, as he doubted Felix had any interest in factional politics. This provoked Marquis, who told him to mind his own business. They then stood face to face, poised to fight. The servants present trembled in fear at the escalating tension. Suddenly, a voice interrupted them, demanding to know why they were carelessly displaying murderous intent within his house. As the speaker rose, he questioned them if they were looking for a beating, addressing them by their familiar names, Luther and Wicked. It was, of course, Felix. Upon realizing this, the two men immediately bowed before him, stammering that they had no such intention. Still bowed before Felix, Luther stated it had been a long time since their last meeting. Felix, however, dispensed with pleasantries, asking them if they dared to show him respect, while neglecting their duties to engage in factional squabbles. Luther placed his hand over his heart in a gesture of respect, asserting that he would never do such a thing, as the lessons Felix had imparted were things his dull body had yet to forget. Moreover, he clarified that he had not come to see Felix, but rather his guests, the McLain family. The Duke inquired as to their purpose, a question that seemed to discomfit Luther. Wicked also interjected, stating that he had come for the same reason, and that he had no desire whatsoever to displease Felix. Felix, turning his back, relayed Wicked and Luther's words to Logan, asking if he wished to meet them. Stepping forward, Logan replied that it would be an honor. He then placed his hand over his heart and courteously greeted the two men, saying it was an honor to meet two individuals he had long admired. Seeing Logan, the two men reacted strangely, showing no interest and appearing to have no idea who he was. They exchanged glances, clearly thinking the same thing. They addressed Logan, their tone dismissive, saying they had heard much about the Sword Duke's disciple and that it was a pleasure to meet such a talented man. However, they clarified that this was not their reason for visiting the McLains. They had actually come to see Logan's father, Patrick McLain, leaving both Logan and Patrick stunned. Patrick, stepping forward, coughed to announce his presence, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He greeted the two men, acknowledging them as superhumans of the kingdom. He then explained that Logan was currently managing the family affairs, and that they could continue their conversation with him. Luther and Wicked refocused their attention on Logan, their initial disinterest replaced by a calculating glint. Luther remarked that since he was managing the estate at such a young age, he was clearly not only strong, but also intelligent. Wicked added, with a touch of insincerity, that it was always a pleasure to converse with a young talent. Logan, maintaining a polite facade, thanked them for their compliments and asked what business they had with his family. The two men exchanged another look, a silent communication passing between them, and proceeded. Luther expressed admiration for Logan's straightforwardness, saying it suited his youth. Wicked suggested that since they were all rather busy, it would be best to avoid beating around the bush. Wicked then stated that since Logan had recently fought against Bifrost of the Second Prince's faction, he should seize this opportunity to pledge his loyalty to His Highness Reuter. He asserted that if Logan did so, the Second Prince would support his family, adding that his uncle-in-law, Kairos, was also part of the faction. Logan, however, remained unconvinced, his expression carefully neutral. Luther then addressed Logan, arguing that there was no point in hostility between neighboring territories. He suggested that if Logan swore his loyalty to His Highness Romain instead, he would achieve a favorable outcome in his arbitration with Bifrost. Luther placed a hand on Logan's shoulder, a gesture that felt more like a claim than a friendly touch, and urged him to make his choice, asking if it wouldn't be preferable for neighbors to live in peace. Logan's expression changed subtly, recognizing this as a veiled threat. He knew there was some truth to it, as the Tomoto castle they had taken bordered Luther Kale's trade city of Kale. Thus, Luther could easily exert his influence if he chose, disrupting trade, inciting unrest, or even fabricating a reason for open conflict. However, Logan had no intention of joining any faction, at least not yet. He realized that, with a little consideration, joining the First Prince's faction could inadvertently pave the way for the Second Prince to conceal the war against Bifrost and ignite a civil war. And even if he joined the Second Prince's faction, although Bifrost and he would be forced to reconcile, Marquis Kalia might subsequently invade, claiming to have been slighted, using the situation as a convenient excuse for expansion. Either way, it was the perfect scenario to create a pretext for conflict, a carefully orchestrated trap. Therefore, refusing both offers was the best option, a delicate dance of diplomacy and strategic patience. Logan lowered his head, placed his hand in front of the two men, and apologized, saying it would be difficult for him to make a hasty decision, given the complexities of the situation and the need for careful deliberation. At this point, Felix, his patience clearly at an end, intervened, demanding to know what they thought they were doing, his voice resonating with barely restrained anger. The two men appeared visibly shaken, their earlier arrogance replaced by nervous apprehension. Felix called their behavior pathetic, acknowledging that Wicked and Luther had dropped all pretense and chosen to issue an outright ultimatum, attempting to bully his ward into compliance. Moreover, they had dared to involve his disciple, a line they should not have crossed. Wicked stammered that it wasn't because Logan was his disciple, but rather that they were simply making a proposal to the McLain household, a business proposition. Luther added that they had no intention of disregarding his wishes, but simply wished to discuss the future with the McLains, their voices now subdued and respectful. Felix asked if they were absolutely certain this wouldn't involve him in any way, his gaze piercing. Both Wicked and Luther stood at attention, like soldiers receiving a direct order, and swore that it would not. Felix observed them silently for a moment, his expression unreadable, then turned his back, saying that this was as it should be, as he was leaving for his study. He added that he had no business involving himself in factional disputes. Wicked, sensing an opening, asked him what he meant by that. Felix then informed them of his decision. From that day forward, he would no longer participate in the factional war. Therefore, whether through Logan or anyone else, they should abandon all thoughts of involving Felix. The two men exchanged another look, their minds racing, considering their response to this unexpected development. They then stated that they would convey His Grace's intentions to their highnesses as they were. Logan, inwardly, breathed a sigh of relief. However, Wicked, before leaving, turned to Logan and told him to think carefully and make a decision, adding that he would see him soon, a hint of menace in his voice. Logan nodded, acknowledging the veiled threat. Luther also addressed Logan, saying that in a way, this could be good luck for the McLains, which piqued Logan's interest. He explained that if they had attacked Bifrost after the funeral, His Highness wouldn't have even bothered with negotiations, implying that the timing of the attack had forced their hand. Hearing this, Logan realized why he had attacked Bifrost before the funeral and replied to Luther that this was truly a relief, feigning gratitude. As they departed, Logan watched them from a distance. His eyes narrowed. He lowered his head, genuinely relieved that they were finally gone, admitting to himself that simply talking to them had been draining, their presence a suffocating weight. Felix then asked Logan if he planned to involve himself in the faction war, as he hadn't refused them outright. Logan replied that this was a choice he might consider if necessary, a carefully crafted ambiguity. He apologized to Felix, saying that they didn't have the strength to adhere to their ideals in the face of such pressure. However, regardless of the path he chose, he intended to do whatever he could to retain his honor. Felix was left speechless by this display of pragmatism and resolve. He then nodded, a hint of respect in his eyes, and told Logan that this was enough. Felix then turns away from Logan and tells him to return and rest for now, as the funeral will begin soon. Outside the palace, the king's coffin was carried through the gardens toward the grand entrance. As the pallbearers carefully maneuvered the casket inside, a somber voice announced the arrival of His Majesty's remains. The coffin was then solemnly carried toward the altar, where the 8 pallbearers gently placed it down. The archbishop, clad in his ceremonial robes, ascended the steps toward the podium, his disciples flanking him. They were prepared to begin the funeral rites. The archbishop raised his head to address the assembled crowd, but his facial expression instantly shifted from solemnity to dismay. The scene before him was one of blatant disrespect. Instead of mourning the deceased king, the attendees whispered amongst themselves, their conversations filled with political machinations and veiled threats. The two princes, their faces etched with boredom and barely concealed contempt, glanced at the coffin with undisguised disinterest, making it clear they would rather be anywhere else. Their grandfathers mirrored their expressions of disgust, some even openly yawning. The only 2 individuals who seemed genuinely affected by the king's death, their faces etched with grief, were the Sword Duke, Felix Esperanza, and the 3rd prince, whose youthful face was a mask of sorrow. Observing this disgraceful spectacle, Logan sat beside his father, a mixture of disbelief and disgust churning within him. He couldn't fathom how everyone had chosen to engage in political maneuvering and power plays instead of paying their respects to the departed king. As the archbishop announced his intention to begin the prayer, Logan noticed that even the archbishop seemed shaken by the blatant disrespect displayed by the attendees. The archbishop began his eulogy, recounting the king's life from 40 years ago until the present day, a chronological account that seemed excessively long given the circumstances. Suddenly, a voice startled Logan, whispering in his ear, "You only have 1 week." It was Bifrost, his face a mask of smug satisfaction. "Enjoy yourself while you still can," he hissed. "It won't do you any good to despair in your final moments after all." Logan, taken aback by Bifrost's presence, wondered about the seating arrangements, incredulous that he had been placed next to such an unprincipled man. As the archbishop continued his lengthy eulogy, Logan leaned toward Bifrost and casually dropped a bombshell. "I haven't told you yet, but I've been approached by their faction," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "We might end up on the same side, so it would be best for you to watch your words." Bifrost's initial reaction was disbelief, sputtering in indignation. Logan then added, "If you don't believe me, ask Marquis Luther Cale himself." Bifrost's anger intensified at the mention of Cale's name. Logan then chuckled. "Just kidding." Bifrost's face contorted with rage, trembling as he barely restrained himself. "How dare you do this?" he seethed, clenching his fists. He reminded himself that he had to maintain composure until the funeral was over, after which he would immediately go to see Duke Felix. He glared at Logan, calling him an arrogant boy and vowing that no one touched what was his, and escaped unscathed. a threat veiled in a promise of retribution. Around the room, the reactions of the attendees remained divided. The first and second princes, though outwardly composed, were clearly bored, their attention wandering. Their grandfathers continued to yawn, completely unconcerned with the proceedings. Only the third prince and Felix seemed genuinely distressed, refraining from tears but radiating an aura of suppressed anger at the disrespectful behavior of the others. Finally, the archbishop concluded his extensive eulogy, announcing that the first day of the national funeral rites was complete. Inside Logan's house, in the Grandia Kingdom capital, Logan says that the first day of the national funeral rites has concluded. Logan and Patrick seem to be wiping themselves out of sweat. While he is doing this, Logan thinks how he cannot believe that the rites would start in the morning and end in the evening. Besides, even though he expected something like it to happen, as soon as it was over, vassals from both factions started gathering around them, bothering them till the bitter end. Logan even says that turning them down every time even started feeling like a chore. While Patrick is looking at him from behind, that is when he speaks up and asks his son if he intends to make use of either of the factions. Hearing this, Logan turns to his father and remains silent for a second. Then he asks Patrick if he is worried, and Patrick replies by telling him that, honestly, if things continue as they are, their family will be at risk. Regardless of which faction they use, the strength of either one is needed in order to stop the Bifrost invasion, their top priority at the moment. Logan replies that if need be, they have the option of relying on his master to resolve things. That won't be necessary though, as Logan says that they will resolve themselves before then, which leaves Patrick speechless. Hearing this, Patrick asks Logan what he has planned, and Logan tells him to go inside a certain room. A door opens, and a voice greets Logan, saying that it's been a long time. This is no other than Philip, who's sweating like a pig.